Hallelujah! Shalom, family. Love to the 12 tribes of Yasharal scattered abroad. Welcome. We want to look at Yom Teruah, the day of shouting, and see how it connects to end-time prophecies. Let's start in Wa'ikra, or Leviticus chapter 23. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, saying, In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of Teruah, a set-apart convocation. You shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. So here we have the instructions concerning this particular Moed, this appointed time. Bamidbar, or Numbers chapter 10. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of the peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before Alahik. I am Yahuwah, Alahik. Alright, so these appointed times, these solemn days or Moedim, and the new moons are to be a memorial. Not only a remembrance of events that happened to the nation of Yasharal in the past, but also a reminder of things to come in the future. So we want to look at certain prophecies and see if they have any connections to this particular appointed time, Yom Teruah. Matthew chapter 24. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great esteem. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So we want to remember these key points of a tribulation, clouds, a great sound of a trumpet. Remember, the appointed times are supposed to be presented with the sounding of trumpets, and also the new moons. And of course, Yom Teruah is a new moon, and it's also an appointed time. As we read, he will send his messengers to gather his elect. So who are the elect? Let's go to Yeshayahu, or Isaiah chapter 45. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Yasharal my elect, I have even called you by your name. I have surnamed you, though you have not known me. So the Israelites understood who Yahushua was speaking of when he spoke about the elect. The elect are the Israelites. Alright, so gather together his elect from the four winds. Now, in Hebrew, the word for wind is ruach. So ruach in Hebrew encapsulates the idea of spirit, breath, and wind. So let's go to Mark chapter 13. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and esteem. And then shall he send his messengers, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. So he's gathering the Israelites from all places around the world. Yeshayahu, or Isaiah chapter 11. And it shall come to pass in that day, Adonai shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Yasharal, and gather together the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. Okay, so you see the gathering of the elect, the gathering of the house of Yasharal and the house of Yehudah from the four winds, the four corners. Let's look at Hezekiah, or Ezekiel chapter 37. The hand of Yahuwah was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit, the Ruach. So remember, Ruach means spirit, wind, breath. And carried me out in the Ruach of Yahuwah, and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about. And behold, there were very many in the open valley, and behold, they were very dry. And he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, Adonai Yahuwah, you know. Again he said unto me, Prophesy unto these bones, and say unto them, You dry bones, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says Adonai Yahuwah unto these dry bones, Behold, I will cause breath, again Ruach, before it was translated as spirit. Now here, the same word in Hebrew, Ruach, is translated as breath. I will cause breath, Ruach, to enter into you, and you shall live. Verse 6, And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath, Ruach, in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. So you notice here a noise, just like Yom Teruah, the day of shouting, the day of loud noise. Okay, verse 8. And when I beheld, behold, the sinews and the flesh came up upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath, Ruach, in them. Then said he unto me, Prophesy unto the wind. Again, here, wind is the Hebrew Ruach. Prophesy unto the Ruach. Prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, Ruach, Thus says Adonai Yahuwah, Come from the four winds, Ruach, breath, Ruach, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. Remember we read in Matthew about the four winds. Again, we see the four winds, the Ruach. Verse 10. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath, Ruach, came into them, and they lived, and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Yasharal. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. we are cut off for our parts. So these bones represent the house of Yasharal. Why are they saying that their hope is lost and they are cut off? Because it was the house of Yasharal that received a bill of divorcement from Yahuwah. Verse 12. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus says Adonai Yahuwah, Behold, my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Yasharal. So again, that gathering. Verse 13. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah, when I have opened your graves, my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my Ruach, my spirit, in you, and you shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall you know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken it and performed it, says Yahuwah. Alright, so this is a promise of Yahuwah to gather the house of Yasharal and restore them, to gather them and bring them back into the land. Ezekiel chapter 36. Therefore say unto the house of Yasharal, Thus says Adonai Yahuwah, I do not this for your sakes, house of Yasharal, but for my set-apart name's sake, which you have profaned among the heathen where you went. Verse 24, For I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. So again, when we read in Matthew about him sending his messengers to gather his elect, verse 26, A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit, Ruach, will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my Ruach spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. So this was a promise to the house of Yasharal, the Israelites that were cut off, that received a bill of divorcement and sent into exile. Yahuwah promised that he would find a way to gather them back in, and with that gathering, he would place his Ruach, his spirit, within them and cause them to be obedient to his laws, commandments, and statutes, his Torah. Jeremiah chapter 31. Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Yasharal and with the house of Yehudah. Verse 33, But this shall be the covenant which I will make with the house of Yasharal. After those days, says Yahuwah, I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their Aleim, and they shall be my people. Alright, so this is the promise. The Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit, is to be a gift to the Israelites, to empower Israelites to keep the laws, commandments, and statutes of the Most High, to walk in his Torah.
Do me a huge favor and smash the like button. And also consider subscribing. It really helps me to grow the channel. And the more the channel grows, the more we all can spread the word.
Verse 28, And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I will be your Aleim. Verse 37, Thus says Adonai Yahuwah, I will yet for this be inquired of by the house of Yasharal, to do it for them, I will increase them with men like a flock. As the set-apart flock, as the flock of Jerusalem in her solemn feasts, so shall the waste cities be filled with flocks of men. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Alright, so he's comparing that gathering, filling Jerusalem with crowds of men, just like in the solemn feast, the Moedim. Sirach, chapter 49. And of the 12 prophets, let the memorial be Baruch, and let their bones flourish again out of their place. For they comforted Jacob and delivered them by assured hope. Acts chapter 1. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Adonai, will you at this time restore again the kingdom to Yasharal? So the Talmudim, the disciples, were asking Yahusha, are you going to restore the kingdom of Yasharal at this time? Why? Because the prophets, the promises were of a restored kingdom of Yasharal. Verse 9. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven, as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, You men of Galilee, why stand you gazing up into heaven? This same Yahusha, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. Alright, so what like manner? He went in a cloud, and as we remember, he prophesied, as recorded in Matthew, that he will come with the clouds. First Thessalonians chapter 4. But I would not have you be ignorant, brothers, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yahusha died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yahusha will Elohim bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of Yahuwah, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of Adonai shall not prevent them which are asleep. So what is Shaul talking about here? By the word of Yahuwah. Well, of course, in his time when he was writing this letter to the Israelites in Thessalonica, there was no so-called New Testament. When the Israelites, the Yahudim, talk about the word of Elohim, the word of Yahuwah, they're referring to the Torah and the prophets. Romans chapter 9. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Mashiach for my brothers, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption, and the esteem, and the covenants, and the giving of the Torah, and the service of Elohim, and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Mashiach came, who is over all, Elohim Baruch forever. Amen. Alright, so the promises were given to the Israelites. And as we read in the prophets, there is a promise of a new covenant, and there's a promise of the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit, being given to the Israelites, so that the Israelites will be empowered to walk in the Torah, to obey the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yah. Back to 1 Thessalonians. For Adonai himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the chief messenger, and with the trump of Elohim, and the dead in Mashiach shall rise first. then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Adonai in the air, and so shall we ever be with Adonai. Okay, so we see the shout and the voice, just like in Yom Teruah, the day of shouting, the day of loud noise, and with the trumpet. And again, the appointed times are to be sounded with trumpets. And again, we see here in verse 17 the mention of clouds, that just like the men said that the same way that you saw Mashiach go and he went in the clouds, is the same way that he's going to come with the clouds. And again, we see a gathering. And remember, it's his elect, the Israelites, that will be gathered from the four corners, from the four winds. Tehillah, Psalm chapter 68. Sing unto Elohim, you kingdoms of the earth. Sing praises unto Adonai. Salah. To him that rides upon the heaven of heavens, which were of old. Behold, he does send out his voice, and that a mighty voice. Ascribe you strength unto Elohim. His excellency is over Yashrael, and his strength is in the clouds. Elohim, you are terrible out of your set-apart places. Ali Yashrael is he that gives strength and power unto his people. Baruch Elohim. Alright, so we see again here his voice, his mighty voice. Yom Teruah, the day of shouting. His strength is in the clouds. He's coming in the clouds. He gives strength and power to his people, just like we talked about in Hezekiel about the dry bones coming back to life. First Corinthians chapter 15. Now this I say, brothers, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. Okay, so again we see the last trump, the sound of the trumpet. And again, the trumpets were to be sounded on the appointed times and the new moons. Remember the house of Yashrael, those dry bones being raised back to life. Again, Shaul is addressing the brotherhood. So his brothers are Israelites. So let's catch this reference that is mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 about death is swallowed up in victory. Yeshayahu, or Isaiah chapter 25. He will swallow up death in victory, and Adonai Yahuwah will wipe away tears from off all faces, and the rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth, for Yahuwah has spoken it. Alright, so again, this is speaking to the Israelites, his people. Chazon, or Revelation, chapter 8. And I saw the 7 messengers which stood before Elohim, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Verse 6. And the 7 messengers which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Chapter 11. And the 7th messenger sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of Adoninu, and of his Mashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever. Alright, so again, this mention of trumpets and sound and great voices. Could this be happening at the appointed time of Yom Teruah, the day of shouting, the day of great noise? Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah chapter 30. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So remember what we read about Yahusha, his prophecy recorded in Matthew. He talked about after the tribulation. So Jacob's trouble, the tribulation. Verse 8. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahuwah Zebaoth, that I will break his yoke from off your neck, and will burst your bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. They shall serve Yahuwah their Elohim, and Dawood their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear you not, my servant Jacob, says Yahuwah, neither be dismayed, Yashrael. For behold, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. So we see again, after the tribulation, Jacob's trouble, the gathering of the elect, the Israelites. Okay, so when we rehearse these moedim, these appointed times, we remember the events that happened to our fathers in the past. And we also are reminded of the promises that have yet to be fulfilled from Yahuwah. May Yahuwah redeem his people, deliver us from captivity, deliver us from exile, bring us back into the land you promised our fathers. Send your Mashiach to reign over us. Hallelujah.
Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Bind up the testimony, seal the Torah among my disciples. Shalom, family. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Like, comment, and share.